A very good evening to all of you. Today, we are going to embark upon the interesting and insightful revelations of epistemology. Epistemology means the science of cognition. What methodology, what modus operandi we use to get to know about the things of this world, to gain knowledge about the things in this world. That's called as epistemology. Once upon a time, there was a young, studious, hardworking, ambitious, scholarly young little frog, and he used to stay near the Atlantic Ocean. So he thought he needs to get a higher education from some foreign universities. He needs to get some research orientation. He needs to work under some world-class scientists, researchers. So he started Googling the research profile of various professors. He wanted to work with top-class scientists, top-class researchers. And he found in one of the universities there was the famous professor, the world famous professor, Dr. Frog. And he had his world famous university, his world famous labs, which were the state of the art, which had the highest, the most precise, the most costly, the rarest of the research equipments in his laboratory. So the young frog applied for a research position. And then he went all the way from the Atlantic, deep interior, to face an interview. And the young frog, he was standing before the famous Dr. Frog. And Dr. Frog was sitting in his armchair. And Dr. Frog looked at this young frog. Glancing through his specs. And he said, "So, you want to study in our world famous laboratories?" And the young frog said, "Yes, sir. I will be very studious. Very diligent." And Dr. Frog asked him, "So, where are you from?" And he said, "Sir, I am from the Atlantic. Dr. Frog said, "Atlantic? Oh, is that the name of your well? Oh, Atlantic well. Interesting. How big is the size of your Atlantic well? Is it 1/10 the size of our university well?" And the young frog, he didn't understand what this question meant. Atlantic well. In Atlantic everything is well, but what do you mean by Atlantic well? and 1/10 of the size of this university. Well, and the young frog was confused. The young frog was scratching his head, and the young frog said, "Sir, bigger." "Oh, your world, Atlantic world, is bigger than is bigger than 1/10 of our university as well." "Oh, really? Do you mean to say it is half the size of our university world?" And the young frog, he didn't understand what to say. Already he was on nerves. And he said, "My dear sir, it's bigger." "You mean to say that your Atlantic world is the same size as our university world?" The young frog was so nervous. All he could say is, "Bigger, bigger." "Oh, it's bigger than the size of our university world. How big? It's twice? It's twice, do you mean to say?" And the young frog was dumbfounded. His body was shivering. All he could say was, "Bigger, bigger." Dr. Frog became very angry. Dr. Frog became agitated. Dr. Frog, he became provoked. He said, "Oh, is it 10 times the size of our well?" The young frog, all he could murmur was, "Bigger." And Dr. Frog concluded and he said, "Such a well does not exist. You liar, you cheat." By this time, the young frog, he was dumbfounded. He was shivering. His teeth were quivering. He didn't know what to say. All he could say was, he gathered some courage. He was pumping in some energy to speak. It was his world famous Dr. Frog. And this young frog, he just blurted out. He said, "I can take you there. You can see it for yourself." And the Dr. Frog passed his resolution. He said, "No, that's not how you do science. If you have to prove anything, if you want our university, our world famous laboratories to vouch for anything, to validate anything, then that thing has to be tested into our laboratories. So you better get your Atlantic well here and let us test it out." That was Dr. Frog's resolution. So now the question which arises is, that there is no doubt that Dr. Frog's world-class laboratory well was well equipped and everything was well in his well. No doubt it had state-of-the-art facilities. But what was lacking? Why? Where was the fallacy? That is the question to ponder over. That is the question to muse about. Where lies the fallacy? What was happening wrong? What was happening wrong? Can the limited ever interface the unlimited? Is the limited always going to remain limited? But are the limits of the limited going to be relaxed? His quest for knowledge, his quest for meaning and fulfillment, always going to be limited by the boundaries of this well? Or can we ever expand beyond that? That and much more will be the topic of discussion today. This is epistemology. So going ahead, we are going to see 3 ways of gaining knowledge. 4 defects lead us to imperfect knowledge. The incompleteness in the modern methodology of scientific research. Exploring and evaluating the Vedas and seeing how can we blend the limited with the unlimited. One time, there were 6 young, brilliant, astute, ingenious, innovative, young researchers. And they wanted to do a unique, innovative experiment into a powerful laboratory setting, the powerful labs of the forest. By the way, these innovative young researchers in their early careers, they had one limitation, and the limitation they had was they were blind. So they were researching into the well-equipped labs of the forest. And the topic of research was, how does an elephant look like? And you see, the lab setting was perfect. The lab apparatus was in there, right in place. And these 6 young innovative researchers are out there on their research. So what we are seeing in the picture here is a snap of their research. And all of them, with all their mathematical analysis, modeling analysis, probability analysis, and all their algebra and programming and modeling skills, are out there to research. So very interesting to see and note what kind of research results these 6 innovative researchers, they happen to be blind, these 6 innovative researchers came up with. Now these research results, by the way, they got published into IEEE, ACM, top international journals like Nature, Science, and so on. But what were the research results? That's very interesting to see. So how does an elephant look like? The first publication you can see in the figure. How does an elephant look like? The second publication, the next publication, and the next, and the next. So one research publication said the elephant looks like a snake, the other one said the elephant looks like a tree, the other one said the elephant looks like a wall, a rope, an axe, an arrow. But the question is, how does an elephant really look like? So if one happens to be blind and innovative still the research statement appears to be very challenging. So again, here the deep question to ask is that where lies the fallacy? Is the fallacy in the laboratory setting? Is the problem in the lab apparatus? Is the problem in the researchers? Are they never going to be able to understand what is the right aspect, or what is the right picture of reality? Is the fallacy in their mathematical modeling skills, or is the fallacy in the methodology? Are there not inherent limitations which get fixed or reverted the moment we choose a particular methodology to understand reality? The young researchers here did not. So the young researchers here did not focus on hearing from a person who has eyes to understand really how does an elephant look like. The young researchers resorted to the methodology of how it feels, to do the physiological analysis and try to understand how does the elephant feel like. And therefore, based on that, they published their results. Now the results are not incorrect, but they happen to be incomplete. So thus it is very important to understand that the methodology we use to gain knowledge about reality in itself imposes certain limitations. And owing to these limitations, we may get a handle or a feel of what the reality is like, but we may not understand the reality in totality or per se. Therefore, let's try to understand the three ways gaining knowledge. The first one is called as Pratyaksha Praman. Pratyaksha means direct sense perception. Pratyaksha Praman. Anuman Praman. Anuman means guesswork. It may be like this, it may be like that, perhaps it was like this. We hypothesize. That's Anuman Praman. And the third is called as Shabda Praman. Shabda means hearing from a bona fide authority. Shabda Praman. Hearing from a well-established expert. Pratyaksha Praman. So Pratyaksha Praman will say reality means that which is going to be ingrained into direct experience, direct sense perception. So the presence of Pratyaksha will dictate that yes, reality means if you are able to see it, then it is reality. But then the simple understanding which comes is that there are many things in this world which we see, but we don't believe in them because we know it's not true. Just like in the picture here, I mean by sight, by normal sight, it appears that these two rail tracks are meeting actually. It appears to be two lines of a triangle, an isosceles triangle, so to say. These two rail lines are never going to meet, although it appears to be. So seeing is not believing. Two rail lines never do meet. it appears that the stick is bent. It only appears. But if we say seeing is believing and concluding, then we are mistaken. Then we are not scientific also. Because the laws of refraction say that, no, it's not tilted. Mirage. In the desert, it appears to be there that there is water. Similarly, on a road, sometimes it appears that there is water. If it is in the midst of summer, the road also appears to be having water, but there is no water. That's a mirage. So, seeing is not believing. On the other hand, we can understand that. On the other hand, we can understand that there are things in this world which we do not see, but we believe in them. We do believe in them. There are things in this world which we don't see. We don't see electrons. We don't see soul. What to say of anything else? Without a mirror, we don't see our own eyelids. So seeing is not believing. And then there is reality beyond seeing. We don't see air, we believe in it. So in this way, we can understand that pratyaksha praman, that is the pratyaksha praman, the purview of pratyaksha is always going to be like a well, like a limited well. And that gives us only a small window worth of understanding of the entire reality, not the reality per se. Yeah, so these are convex concave mirrors, you can see. Now, if Miss World were to believe what she sees in a convex concave mirror in a laughing house, if she were to believe that that's how she looks, she may get a heart attack on the spur of the moment. This is how she looks. Weird caricature. So pratyaksha is like a well. So just like we are talking about sight, similarly we can understand that each of our senses are limited. Each of our senses are offering a limitation. It's not just sight. It's about smell also. Our olfactory organs have limitations. We cannot smell as much as a dog. Similarly, taste. Similarly, taste. Just like a person is ill and he cannot differentiate much between salty, the less salty, more salty and all that. The taste is having a limitation. Similarly, our ears. Our ears are having limitation of hearing. We can only hear 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz. It's all limited. It's like a well. So this goes to show that we cannot acquire complete knowledge using our material senses like eyes, ears, etc. Now somebody may say, why? Why so? And the one pointed answer or the evident answer which we can see in our own lives is that because we are all gifted with 4 inherent defects. That's why the Bhakti Shastras talk about, that's why the scriptures are talking about, that in life the best attitude to follow in life is to be humble and not be in an illusory egoistic concept that I am great and all I reason is what is right and all I fathom is what is the benchmark of reality. No, we are all gifted with 4 defects. And because of this, we can see that our modern day approach to science, which is primarily based on pratyaksha, goes on getting updated and modified because we are possessing these 4 defects. And therefore we see in science, theories keep changing, like disposable napkins. So these 4 defects. The first one, imperfect senses. We have imperfect senses. Our senses are all going to limit us. The second, we tend to get illusioned. We get illusioned, hallucinated. Third, the tendency to commit mistakes. Therefore, they make a punchline saying that okay, to err is human. So that means we commit mistakes. Now, over and beyond this, there is another tendency, the cheating propensity. The tendency to cheat under the table, the cheating propensity. So it is because of these 4 defects, we cannot get knowledge of this. We cannot get knowledge of this world perfectly. These 4 defects limit our understanding of the reality of this world because they are offering us a limitation. Our eyes are blind outside the range of 400 to 700 millimicron. And if you see the visible light, the visible spectrum, it is such a tiny portion of the entire EM spectrum. Such a tiny portion of the entire EM spectrum. Similarly, our ears have their range. Simple things. If something is too near to us, we cannot see. If something is too far away from us, we cannot see. Our ears are deaf. The same is true for each and every one of our senses. Now, this is an interesting point. Now, someone may say, okay, fine. Our senses may be having their inherent limitations. But just like if you have some problem in your eye and your eye cannot see, your eye is -5, -7, something, you can wear specs and refocus your eyes and then you can see. If you are having any hearing problem, then you can add on to a hearing aid and then you can hear. Similarly, by modern day innovation, revolution of technology, we can add gadgets which are more powerful and which have less limitation than our own inherent senses, and thereby we can capture a better picture, a bigger picture of the reality. We are no more limited. We can expand our frontiers, and in this way we can try to capture reality per se. You might have heard sometimes people speaking like that. It sounds interesting. But is it really true? The answer to this is given by Nobel Prize winning physicist Eugene Wigner. And he says a very meaningful and interesting observation. He says, even if you photograph stars, or we may have the best of the telescopes, and which are getting more and more precise, the precision is increasing more and more day by day. But he says, even if you photograph the stars, eventually we have to take in by our senses what the photograph shows. Secondly, without our senses we cannot handle the camera, because our senses only handling, and therefore the limitations of our senses are just like a race, a ballet race. If the first person in the race is slow, the second person has a disadvantage. The first person, the last person, all are slow because our senses are having limitations. So how long the middle person can go forward? And then he says no, but then and then he says, even if we amplify or refine by our instruments this particular capturing of knowledge, that amplification is no more perfect than our imperfect senses. To what degree we can amplify and refine and be precise is also not unlimited. To what degree we can enhance is also not unlimited. Because everything is based on the foundation of our imperfect senses. Therefore, we can never supersede this inherent error of our imperfect senses. Just like if you have a chain, the strength of the chain is determined by the strength of the weakest link. Because if it breaks, then everything is broken. Then you don't have knowledge at all. There is nothing which is binding, which is connecting the far apart observations. And therefore you have no theory, you have no understanding, you have no model of reality. So everything depends on the weakest link. And the weakest link is defined by our senses, imperfections of our senses. We get illusioned. This is called as conditioning. Just like, for example, the experiment is given that, okay, you eat some gulab jamun, and after that take an orange, take a slice of the orange. How does it taste? It tastes, orange is in general sour, so it may taste sour, you know. But now it is said that, okay, now you take some lemon and take the same slice, another slice of the same orange. How does that sweet taste? And now the realization is going to be that it tastes sweet. The same orange, is it sweet or is it sour? Similarly, another experiment, if one so if our hand is warm, that means we have kept our hand near a fire, you know, and then we put our hand in water, it appears to be cool. But the same hand, if you put in ice and then put it in the same water, that water appears to be warmer. So this goes to show that our experience, our quantification, our classification is always relative to what state we are in. This is called as conditioning. In psychology, this is called as conditionings. Psychologists have done a lot of experiments. Like, say, for example, to get this point very clear, they were doing experiment on dogs. So what they would do is that whenever they would keep a food, a lunch or a dinner plate for a dog, they would ring the bell. So the dog got the dog's brain systems, his neural networks, learned. There was machine learning which happened. And then what the psychologist did is that further experiments after a few weeks, they would just ring the bell. When they would ring the bell and not keep the lunch plate also, then also they would see that the dog's mouth starts salivating. Saliva starts pouring out of his dog's mouth. But much to their surprise, there is no lunch plate. It was only the bell. So the dog's body system got tuned to the understanding that whenever there is plate, there is food, there is bell. So bell means food, food means saliva. So bell, saliva, bell, saliva. A leads to B leads to C, A leads to C. So therefore, no bell and the mouth salivating. No food, but the mouth salivating. This is called as conditioning. And just like a dog, got illusion. We also tend to get illusion. Sometimes people who stay near a railway line, sometimes they find difficulty in figuring out whether it is the whistle of the train or the whistle of the pressure cooker, because you get accustomed. So this is the tendency to get illusioned. Okay, let's see a few pictures. So here is an interesting picture. The question is, what do we see in this picture? Option A, do you see an old lady? Option B, do you see a young lady? Now, some of us may be seeing an old lady, some of us may be seeing a young lady, some of us may not be seeing anything, neither of the two. Some of us may be seeing both. So what is reality? Is it a young lady? Is it an old lady? So if you see, the old lady is facing this way, sorry, yeah, facing this way, and the young lady is facing towards the back. That's right. So the chin of the young lady is the nose of the old lady. The necklace of the young lady is the mouth of the old lady. This is called as selective vision. That means what is reality very much depends on what we happen to see. Selective vision. Now therefore the question is it young lady, is it old lady? It can only be one lady. Either it can be young lady or old lady. It cannot be two ladies, or it is not lady at all. Is it not? So lady can either be young or be old, right? How can it be both? So that's the question which haunts us. I mean, that's the question which can haunt us. And mind it, this is the type of question which haunts scientists and physicists since decades and centuries. So one of the burning questions which haunt scientists and physicists is that, okay, what is light? Is it a young lady or is it an old lady? And this research has been haunting scientists and physicists for decades and decades and centuries. And one scientist sees it in a particular way and makes a conclusion, and the other sees it in another way and makes another conclusion. So what is light? Is light a wave or a particle? The wave, the old lady, or the particle, the young lady? And one scientist says, no, it's an old lady, it's a wave. And the other one says, no, it's a young lady, a particle. So, centuries and centuries we can keep debating on this. Is it not? What is the answer? What is the understanding? The understanding is that our understanding is limited because we tend to get illusion. So we can only capture a portion of reality. This is another interesting figure. The question is, what do you see in this figure, or what all geometries do you see in this figure? So one may be seeing segmented circles. Something like a triangle is very prominently visible, but actually if you see in this image there is no triangle. Although the triangle seems to be coming out to the eye. There is no triangle here. It's just that these cuts are aligned in that way. There is no triangle in this figure. This is called as imaginative vision. We are simply imagining a geometry in a form which does not exist. So the point to note is this, that our scientists and researchers are also not exempt from this particular error. When the same eyes of the scientists and the researchers look at microscopic objects to try to understand, to give form, geometry, morphology to the microscopic, the nanoparticles, the quantum particles, and so on, the cell structures, the DNA structures, the genetic structures, and so on. And when the same eyes look at cosmological objects, can the same error not exist? They are simply imagining morphologies and forms which actually do not exist. Here is another example. What do you see in this picture? Now you may say, yeah, this picture we can see a lot of details. A lot of things are happening. An old man, an old woman. The two guys sitting and chilling out, having a musical symphony. Some lady at the back is peeping out. There seems to be a golden type of flower vase. So many things you can see actually. So this picture goes to show that this is called as contextual vision. That there are multiple aspects of reality. Reality is not just one. There are so many things. There's an old couple, there are two friends, the young lady. There's so many aspects of reality. There's a flower vase. Where it is, what it is. There are so many aspects of reality. So it's very likely, it's very probabilistic that we may miss out on some or the other aspect of this reality. And therefore our knowledge is not going to be complete. This goes to show we tend to get illusioned. What is this? Is it a fleet of ships? Or is it a bridge? We tend to get illusion. Does this not appear to be moving? How can a 2D picture move or a 2D photograph move? Do they not appear to be moving as well? If we focus on them, this is the tendency to get illusion. Believe it or not, these guys are the same height. It's all because of the background. We are getting conditioned to be thinking that one is higher and the other one is lower. So that means it's all relative. It's all about conditioning. So what is reality? The point to accept is this, that with Pratyaksha Praman, direct sense perception, there is no absolute benchmark of reality. Everything is just relative. And we are simply tossing on a relative platform. That's why the Pratyaksha Praman, the world it makes, can never make us happy. Yeah, so he's saying that focus on the dot in the center and move your head backwards and forwards. And you can see these wheels are moving and the two concentric circles are moving in opposite directions. Illusion. Illusion. So now comes the point that okay, our senses are limited, so we are only getting very limited data. Then we get illusion. Now because we get illusioned, therefore the third aspect is we commit mistakes. Brain was thought to be an organ to cool the blood before. Pituitary were considered to be a vestige or useless tissue in the human body before. Yeah, so this is talking about Hubble's constant. So Hubble's constant is used as a cosmic yardstick in cosmic formulae calculations. Interestingly enough, this Hubble's constant has been changed till date 3 times. So in fact, some scientists pun or joke. They say, okay, it's no more a Hubble's constant, it's a Hubble's variable. When it will change next, we don't know. So this is mistakes. The tendency to commit mistakes. And mistakes are not just some innocent deeds of a small child. Mistakes do take a toll on humanity. That's the next point to understand. 90,000 people get killed in America annually because of medical mistakes. Mistakes do take a toll. So it's not just sufficient to just say that Ur is human and keep reconciliating with that fact and moving on in life. Mistakes are hazardous. And the next one is cheating propensity. Yeah. So this is an interesting account in science. Now, the theory of evolution, Charles Darwin's theory of evolution, states that the different species evolved from one to the other. So the reptiles became amphibians, amphibians became birds, and then they became mammals. So that's what the Charles Darwin theory says. But then the whole point is that the species changed over a period of millions of years because of survival of the fittest, and it happened over a period of millions of years. Actually, that means that what was the evidence? And Charles Darwin said that the evidence is going to be fossil records. So extensive research was going on to find a fossil of an intermediate species. Some half amphibian, half reptile, some half bird, half mammal, some half gill, half lung structure. Because fossils should have everything, as the species change very, very slowly over a period of millions of years. So the missing link had been missing for decades and centuries. In fact, towards the end of his life, even Darwin was very much depressed that the fossils, millions of fossils have been discovered, but the missing link was still missing. So there have been many accounts of many case studies with this kind, this missing link. In 1912, there was this case study that there was a missing link which was found and excavated. This was a missing link which was found 1912. It was called as the Piltdown Man. A human skull with an ape-like jaw. And this particular discovery was amazing. This was a proof, and this was kept in Harvard Medical Museum. And interestingly, 41 years later, it was discovered by some students who were studying. So they got out the skull and they were studying. They found it was a human skull and a human jaw, not an ape jaw, but the jaw was artificially filed to look like an ape. Forgery, cheating. So there have been many such accounts of this kind of cheating in science. So here we saw that we have these four defects. So we have reality, which is huge thing, and because our senses are limited, we only get this much. On that we get illusion, so we only get this much. On top of that, we make mistakes, so we only get this much, right? And on top of that, there is cheating propensity, so all we get is this much. And this is not the end to it. The next praman is called as Anuman praman. So in scientific methodology, after perception or after observation, there is hypothesization, which means guesswork. theory is based on the observation, and that means on this we are going to have a guess. कि क्या था? What was it? That means it's going to go even more narrow. And when we say this, what I have is reality, अच्छा है ना? And then we are wondering, ये मेरे life को satisfy क्यों नहीं कर रहा है? Why am I not getting satisfied and having a fulfilling experience of life? अरे what you are having is this, but the reality is this. No, the reality is this big, and what you are having is this. How can it satisfy? So Anuman is theories based on guesswork. Just like when Rutherford bombarded the electron beam on, or the ion beam on through the metal foil, then he saw most of the electrons, they got diverted by a huge amount. They got scattered by a huge angle. So he concluded that that means that there is a positively charged, very dense substance in the atom. He said, okay, let's call it as nucleus. And then he saw that most of the electrons passed as it is. And he said, because most of them pass as it is, that means there is a lot of empty space. And then he said that and then he saw that some of them in the observation, some of them got drifted a little bit in the other direction. So he understood that there is a negatively charged particle which is roaming around the nucleus. Let's call it as an electron. Thus he came up with neutron, proton, an electron. That was the kind of model he created. So this is called as Anuman Praman. Theories based on observation. Yeah. Theories based on observation. Here is an account of the Origin of Species, a book written by Charles Darwin, in which Charles Darwin was studying or meditating on the morphologies of various species, and then he was drawing some connective links, and he was saying, okay, maybe this is the way it could have happened, perhaps this is the way it could have happened. This is an example of speculation. Anuman. Speculation. So Anuman is guesswork, and it may hit, it may not hit. There is probability whether it is true or not, because it's guesswork. It's just like, suppose you are passing by the road and you are seeing that from one of the houses just next to the road, you are getting very loud sound, very high decibel, people are shouting, yelling at each other. Now what could it be? If the windows are closed and the door is closed, we can only guess what it could be. Somebody may say, okay, maybe the people inside the house, they are fighting. Therefore, they are yelling at each other, they are fighting. But you may open the door, knock at it, and you may understand that maybe they are watching a movie. They are not fighting, they are sitting, eating popcorn, watching a movie. But then there could be another possibility that maybe they are not watching a movie, maybe they are not fighting, maybe they are practicing a dramatics. For a society cultural event which is coming up. So Anuman is faulty as well. An example of Anuman. Yeah, so this is a section from the Origin of Species, wherein it says that, okay, how does so there was in North America there was this black bear, and actually this black bear evolved as a whale because he was not finding much food on the land, so he started going in the water. He liked it, he got food, he started staying more time in water. His children started staying more time in water, more time. He became a whale. So it happened over millions of years. So the natural selection, survival of the fittest, and so many other points. So this is an example of Anuman. Theory is based on observation. Yeah, similarly in tracing out humans so in tracing out actually, so another figment of Anuman was that, okay, maybe man came from monkeys. That was Darwin's that, okay, previously there was a monkey like man. So what you see on the right side, what you see on the right side, this side, right side. So what you see on the right side is the evolution, that there was the Neanderthal man, then he became Homo erectus, then he became Homo habilis, then he became Homo sapien, which happened 1 lakh years before, and then he became the most evolved man, which is called as Homo sapien sapien. That happened 40,000 years before. But then actually, when the fossil records came, the record of the rocks, they showed that the fossils showed that the Homo sapiens sapien fossils are dating back to millions of years. What to say of only 40,000 years? So the human beings and apes simultaneously existed millions of years before. That's what the fossil records say. So why? Because the previous theory, I mean the understanding of the modeling of this man coming from apes was done following the dictates of Anuman, or guesswork. But guess is guess. Just like if somebody is not studied in an exam and it's an objective IIT exam and he thinks that maybe today can be my day. So if one just guesses, most likely from anyone who has given exams which are objective, just guesswork, you will not get a single extra mark. Most likely it happens like that. Or if there is negative marking, you may land up losing what you know also. Therefore, any person, any coach, any tutor, for any competitive examination will always give a tip that never attempt what you don't know. Because it's not that because what you know for sure that much you are getting, and if you just give a fluke guess, you may get less than what you all know even. So therefore Anuman, this is the problem with Anuman. So a life based on Pratyaksha and Anuman is going to be problematic. Pratyaksha and Anuman, if we simply base our lives on Pratyaksha and Anuman, life is going to be problematic. And that's why we see that in the world we do face problems of this Pratyaksha and Anuman. Just like, say for example, the Bisleri bottle. A Bisleri bottle may be a convenient substitute for glass bottle. But because of the bottle, when the water is kept in this bottle for some time, the water becomes toxic. In 6 months, the water stored in the Bisleri becomes poisonous. So, because research based on Pratyaksha and Anuman is going to be faulty. So we have to face it. Just like when Coca-Cola was first discovered in life, then they were advertising that this is Coca-Cola, it has a unique element. This unique element is called as caffeine, and it is something which can give you an instant kick and energy, and you can rock over the world. This is how it was advertised. Later they found out that caffeine is very dangerous thing, so they said, "No, thoda isko, put down the advertisements. Not take off caffeine. It's not something very healthy." So this is the problem. Research based on Pratyaksha and Anuman is always going to be faulty. It's like is never going to be complete, and therefore the experience of interfacing it is never going to be complete. Now, just like we can see mobiles are very powerful. I mean, mobiles are our baseline of life in that sense to say. But these mobiles, so I remember, and till the time we were studying high school, or there were no mobiles actually. I remember in my graduation also there was no mobile. Only when I passed out, the mobile fashion became very prominent. This was after 2005 I passed out. That was a time where the fashion was picking up. But in my IIT days also, we never had any mobile. So when this mobile thing was picking up, people were madly purchasing it. Yes, mobile, like that. But then very soon the research came actually that mobile vibrations are very hazardous. So if you hear for a very long time, it can damage the head. If you put it in the pocket, it can damage the heart. If you put it in the pant pocket, it can cause hernia type of thing. The radiations can damage that side. Now the question is, where to put it? Where to put it? This is another example. It's about the bubonic plague. The first time bubonic plague hit the world as an epidemic, it was a massive toll of life. It started in UK. And the researchers, their ingenious research, they were doing overtime to do research to figure out what is the cause of this plague. It was ravaging the whole UK and that way Europe, that way. That's how the epidemic was going. It was a massive bloody epidemic, a plague. The people were losing their lives. And the researchers came up with the result. Their ingenious research result was that plague is caused by cats. And therefore the UK government gave standing instruction that all cats in the entire country have to be killed. And this was a marvelous research which they did just in time, came up with the right results, came up with the cause to like that, and even the scientists are feeling a sense of accomplishment, the doctors, the scientists, researchers, and they were breathing an air of relief while the cats were being killed, and then the people were also getting some hopes that things will now the epidemic is done, epidemic will no longer spread. But within a few days, what happened was completely startling to everyone, because within a few days, the infection increased 10 times. Bubonic plague became uncontrolled, massively exploding. And then the researchers came back again. What happened? Because they got some results, they published those results. Now what's happening? So the scientists came back, started retracing their steps, what went wrong, where it went wrong and all that, and then they came up with the conclusion, sorry, the plague is not caused by cats, it is caused by rats, slight miss, it's caused by rats, but now the UK government had a problem because it was too late. Because now how do you kill rats? There are no cats to kill the rats. So mistakes lead to problems. We can see these kind of problems do exist. One time the doctors in Southeast Asia, they came up with a new material for teeth filling. It was claimed to be very powerful and all that. So many surgeries were done and all that, teeth filling, like that. But then later they found out that this material had some traces of mercury. Now mercury is poisonous. So immediately the public, the advertisement was given, anybody with surgery between this time to this time, please come back. We will take off the surgery because that material is poisonous. And now you're scraping off or filing off the material from the teeth. Then mercury is volatile. It vaporizes very soon, and if the vapor goes inside, the body. It's going to be poisonous. So then they were putting a balloon on the on the cavity so that no vapors go inside actually. So the point is that there are mistakes. There are problems with mistakes based on Pratyaksha and Anuman. There are problems. In fact, we can see that we invent a solution to a particular problem and it leads to another kind of problem. A solution to one problem leads to the invention of another kind of problem. Just like antibiotics. You can solve one disease, but then it leads you to a cascade of so many further diseases. Just like, say for example, they made a great idea, okay, let's make flyovers. So because there is traffic problem, the traffic has to be controlled, so let's make flyovers. They made flyovers so that you can fly, and experience the freedom. You can fly and you can experience the freedom like that. But soon, the flyovers, they have become crawlovers. Because you see, what will happen is that there is jam on the road, then there is flyover. But now if there is jam on the flyover, then you are stuck somewhere in the air, in suspension, in fluidic suspension, is it not? That's what happens. So previously, I remember when there would be traffic jam on the road, then you can park your vehicle on the roadside and go to a shop, and do shopping, sit in a restaurant, have a nice time, but now if you are there stuck on a flyover, what are you going to do? Neither you can go back nor you can come out. You are in collider suspension. So the flyovers became crawlovers. That means modern inventions, they lead to different problems. They lead to newer and newer problems. The solution to one problem gives rise to a series of problems. Biogenetic engineering, say for example, you can make anything. So you can see biogenetically nowadays you can get fruits in all the seasons, like that. You can get apples which have such a red pigment, that it is irresistible. The appeal is irresistible. But if you taste it, there is no juice. It's as if you are munching on thermocol. No juice. That's the kind of world we have come up to. Now this is interesting. Rather, we have seen that many times what has happened is the solution for one problem gives rise to a much bigger problem than the original problem. So the solution proves out to be worse than the problem. Just like say for example, entertainment. Now entertainment, okay, life becomes monotonous. You need something to do in life. You need to chill out somewhere, and that's a problem. But then the solutions came out, very ingenious solutions which came out. Okay, have a television. So television is a solution. But then we have seen, but then statistics and reports say that because of an excessive addiction to say television and say movies. Reports say that okay, a child by the time he comes to mid-level school, he has seen 8,000 murder scenes, 1 lakh violent scenes, and therefore it gets installed in his psychology. His psyche gets installed accordingly. Therefore, children the breed of children who are coming from this kind of exposure, that's much more violent, much more insensitive, much more exploitative, much more animalistic, and therefore there's a problem in parenting. You cannot handle and control. Why? Because what was fed is what is coming out. So it's a very big problem. It's a huge problem. This kind of addiction. Similarly, the kind of addiction which the gaming creates. So people's careers are getting spoiled and they are learning some insensitive habits, is it not? In fact, video games, the first time in life video games were invented, they were invented by the US Army to make their soldiers play it and in that way train them to become heartless. Because in a game you are killing, you are killing in the game and you don't feel it. And by that you are killing your feelings, you are tuning your feelings to get killed, and therefore these people, when they kill in real life, they don't feel anything. It's all about shooting, it's all about scores. That's all the kind of addiction which is created. And now with this being rolled out to the general mass of society, the fabric of the society is getting corrupted. It is making people, not only making people blind, but it is instilling this kind of, it is driving out or drying out the inner fine divine qualities of the heart. The problem leading to a much bigger problem. Previously I remember people would go out shopping. Then I have seen my relatives, acquaintances, they would go out shopping. Now if they want to shop anything, they would spend 1 month in evaluating, in bargaining prices, and then they would be paying money. Every 100 rupee note you take out, it pains. Right, it pains. So people would be controlling themselves. Okay, 1 note is going out. It is like your heart is pouring out like that. Then the ingenious thing which came up, the unique solution which came up, the easy solution to make life easy and comfortable is credit cards. You swipe it, take it, swipe it, like that. You may not have ready money, like that. You just swipe it off, like that, and take anything what you want. Right? But then the point is that the person may take his girlfriend, for shopping, and then, or his the person may take his wife for shopping, like that, and he may be, starting like a much man. He said, okay, take my credit card and just swipe it off, like that, and he swipes it off. Then the person goes back to his office Monday, and 1.5 lakh bill. It will take 1.5 months to get that money, solve it or to pay for it. So that's the kind. Previously, 100 rupee was paying. A person will say, "बहुत हो गया, 2-4 note निकाल दिए, बस." No, isn't that? Now control yourself, control your senses, control your mind, everything, and all that. So that's problems. The solution, creating a much bigger problem. So in this way, we can understand that just pratyaksha and anuman, simply what feels to the external senses, and simply hypothesizing and speculating is not going to lead us to a perfect experience. There is incompleteness which is inherent in them. So yes, just like it is said that it is very dangerous to operate a machine with half knowledge. Very dangerous. Imagine trying to drive with half knowledge. How dangerous and deadly it's going to be. Similarly, it is so simple. We have seen in IIT, there are these machines, just like, say, for example, what to say of anything, even a laser machine. A typical laser, a typical continuous wave laser may cost around 40 to 50 lakhs. A 1 watt, 2 watt, laser, 40 to 50 lakhs. So typical, scan electron microscopy machine may cost around 10 crores. Like that. An MRI machine may cost around at minimum 6 crores, like that. That's the kind of apparatus which they have. So then these are, and just imagine even in IIT, the professors, they don't allow undergraduate students to touch any of these machines. Only PhD researchers are allowed to touch, like that. The undergraduates can just see and clap. Yeah, like that. They're not allowed to touch it. They are JEE qualified, all India rankers, like that, cannot touch it. Why? Because it is so much ingrained that you need to be really trained so that you can touch it, because otherwise you will mess up with it. We are so cautious about a 6 crore machine, 40 lakh machine, like that. But when it comes to life, where does this sense does not arise? Why does this sense does not arise? We are interfacing with the most complicated of all the machines, the universe, our own body. And we interface it without any training, without any knowledge. And we just do hit and trials. Where is common sense? Where is intelligence gone here? Where is intelligence gone here? So therefore, it is very dangerous to operate on a machine with half knowledge. And that's why, one can say that, okay, I understand that, okay, there are inherent limitations in Pratyaksha Anuman. We have these defects. We just cannot understand beyond a certain very limited protocol. That means the world is going to be always dark for us. That's the kind of understanding we get, that yes, okay, the 4 defects will always keep us blind. What is the hope? What is the hope for us? Is there no other way to get free? Where is the hope? What is the scope? That's the question to ask. And if we ask that, that will lead us to the third praman, which is called as Shabda Praman. Now we are coming to define protocols which say that, okay, you can work beyond your capacities. You can overcome your limitations. You can supersede your inebrities. So therefore, this is an amazing body of knowledge, Shabda Praman, because you can work beyond yourself. You can outperform yourself. That's what it means. Just like a person who is cycling, what speed he can come to? Suppose if it is not a geared cycle, what speed you can come to? 20, 30, is it not? But suppose the same person who's cycling, he catches hold of the back of a truck. What speed now he can pick up? Now he is going to move beyond the inherent capacity limits of the cycle. Right? Oh, now you can just sit down in a Padmasana, like that. And the cycle will walk at the speed of the truck. In this way, one can supersede one's limitations and inherent policies. That leads us to the next body of knowledge, which is Shabda Praman. So we can see that any manufacturer manufactures any small little item, he gives a manual along with it. You get a manual along with the laptop. You get a manual along with the mobile. Even with a SIM, you have a 2-page manual which shows or which tells how to operate it. Do you think that the most intelligent creator of the entire universe, when he has given us such a complicated and such a powerful machine, will he not have given a manual how to operate, how to live in this world? Will he not have told us the art of living, the art of transcending the limitations of this world? And yes, he has given, and that manual comes as a body, that manual comes in the form of what we call as in totality the Shabda Praman. So Shabda means hearing from an authority. Just like you happen to travel in an international flight, Kingfisher Airlines, you happen to travel in an international flight, and suppose if the president of Sweden is sitting next to you, how is it that you can know about him? Just by seeing what kind of shirt he is wearing, what kind of pant he is wearing, you will not be able to understand. In fact, it will be very difficult to map his country also, looking at the face of a person. This fellow is from Sweden, or now this fellow is from, to really pinpoint this from Chile, and so on. But if somebody tells you, this man is an important man, he's sitting in, the man sitting next, he's the president of Sweden, and I say, oh, he's the president of Sweden, it's just traveling next to me. Oh, I can take an autograph, I can take a photograph, I can take a selfie and everything and all that. Is it not? That happens by hearing, actually. That happens by hearing. So Shabda is a process of hearing from a bona fide authority. That's called as Shabda. So here it is explained, the question is, how can a child know who his father is? If the child wants to know who is his father, how can he get to know? Now one way of saying is, from an experimental way of saying is that, yes, we will check your genes and we will tell you who your father is. There is genetic fingerprinting. But if you want to do a genetic fingerprinting of all the possible probable male candidates who can be the father of a child, it may take 800 years. Assuming a very small time of 5 minutes, per genetic fingerprinting, like that. And then, you will see that so many, there'll be at least 200 men whose fingerprints will come so close that the machines will say, now we cannot distinguish. And then what can the child do? He will have to pay obeisances, do pranam to each of them and ask them, are you my father? Right? The foolproof solution is you ask the mother who is the father. So that is what is called as deductive knowledge. You ask the mother who is the father. In the same way, we can see that the Vedas, the scriptures, the holy scriptures are like our mother, and they are telling us who our father is. So yes, we were talking about that, yes, will God not be so intelligent to give us a manual? The God has given us a manual, and that manual, the God has given us a manual in the form of the Vedic texts, the Vedas. So Vedas give us GK, not general knowledge, but God knowledge. So the entire system of Shabda Praman follows a very systematic, a strategic approach. Just like is just like how education is imparted. The Vedic process of learning is very systematic, just like modern day knowledge. Like you can understand, it's like a spiritual university. So what we are calling as, so then we see that okay, in education there are these university boards, just like in India at at a secondary, higher secondary level, there are these boards of education, which is just like ICSE, CBSE, state boards, authorized boards. Now, if you want to open an institute, you need to have affiliation from one of these boards. So, this board, ICSE, CBSE, in Sanskrit, in Vedic terminology, it is called as Sampradaya or Parampara. So, therefore, the Vedic Shastras explain that if you want to know about God, then there are 4 bona fide institutions or boards. They are called as 4 Sampradayas. You need to take admission into one of these boards, or you need to take admission into a college which is affiliated from one of these boards. These are 4 boards or 4 Sampradayas. And you can hear these terminologies. These 4 Sampradayas or boards are being named on the names of the 4 founding principles. So, one of them is Brahma Sampradaya, is founding principle Brahmaji. Sri Sampradaya, the founding principle Mother Lakshmi. Rudra Sampradaya, the founding principle Lord Shiva. The Kumar Sampradaya, the founding principle the sons, the 4 sons, celebrated sons of Brahmaji, the 4 Kumaras. So, so we can see these 4 Sampradayas. We can see these 4 Sampradayas. That's like much in South India we can see there are the prominence of Sri Sampradaya, like that. In Gujarat there is I believe Kumar Sampradaya, and then you can see in Vrindavan there is Rudra Sampradaya. And Brahma Sampradaya you can see in many patches of South India, Mid India, just like Udupi, there is Brahma Sampradaya, like that. So there are some seats like that, and so these are universities actually, where you can get authorized knowledge. The 4 universities, based on their founding principles. And now, so here the point is that a student who takes admission, just like in MBBS, there is an established panel of doctors who train a student, who teach him, who test him, who correct him, rectify him, again test him, and when they feel that he has learnt enough, he has matured enough, now he is not making mistakes, now he has assimilated the concepts in his heart, in his life, he can give prescription, he can do surgeries, then they impart upon him the degree MBBS or MD or DM, each of them, any of them, progression. So there is this whole process of training. So here there are these panel of authorized doctors, and they train. This training happens over a period of a decade. By the time you pass out DM, it's more than a decade. Then you become a super specialist. Then you can start prescribing. You can say, yes, I am a gastroenterologist, or I'm an oncologist, or a nephrologist, and so on. Similarly, these 4 universities constitute of Now, at any given point of time, there is an established panel of bona fide, learned teachers. In Sanskrit terminology, they are called as acharyas or guru. So then they train a person who takes admission, test him, explain to him, rectify him, mold him, and this happens over a period of decades. And when they are convinced about that this person has learned enough, then they can confer upon him they can confer upon him the power to prescribe and help others, because he has gained proper knowledge. He has learned over a period of years. So that's how a spiritual university also works. This is Shabda. So in this, so the authorized books are the Vedic texts like Bhagavad Gita, and the professors are like one who has heard from his guru and practiced in his life. Then he has heard from his guru, practiced in his life. So what is he repeating? He is simply repeating what he has learned from his guru. I still see myself that somebody anytime asks me to give a to explain, say, a concept of an algorithm design or to talk about machine learning, I very much refer to the slides which I learned at my time. I just take them and pick them up, and some of the things which were installed at that time, just share them. So that's how it works out. That even it works out materially. Why can't it work spiritually? So a person who has heard from his guru and experienced in his life by implementing it, he can share it, and in this way he can train further students. In this way, although the amazing beauty of this is that although the person per se, the teacher or the professor, he himself may not be completely 100% pure and completely 100% spiritualized. He may be, yes, in progressive stages of his journey to spiritual awakening. He may not be 100% accomplished, but what he is speaking is perfect and complete, because he is just following what he had heard. And if we connect to him, then we get to benefit. Just like a nursery class student can as well learn from a 4th class student, and a 4th class student can learn from an 8th class student, and he can learn from an engineering first year, and an engineering first year or second year or third year can learn from an MTech, and an MTech will learn from a PhD, and a PhD will learn from a professor, right? And all in due course of time can become professors. That's the whole point. That's the whole beauty. So therefore the Vedic Shastras explain that the Supreme Lord in Bhagavatam, this is how Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the essence of the Vedas, in Srimad Bhagavatam explains that how the Lord gave this divine knowledge. This divine knowledge was given in the heart of Brahma Ji. Tene Brahma Hridaye Adi Kavaye. So Brahma Ji is one of the founding principles. He was given knowledge by God, the Lord himself. And then this Vedic wisdom came down in disciplic succession from a series of spiritual professors down, and therefore that's how it's coming to us. So now it says that this body of knowledge, this is what is called as parampara system. This is what is called as parampara system. And now you see the point. Now we may say that, okay, this is amazing. Why? Because a person who is having 4 defects can actually get to assimilate by practice and training. He can, over a period of decades, he can get to assimilate knowledge which is divine, which is beyond the 4 defects. Amazing. This is amazing. So this is how this knowledge was being passed from professor to student, from guru to shishya, in the line of this is what is called as disciplic succession. 5,000 years before, Vyasadeva, who was a literary incarnation of God, he recorded this very knowledge which was being passed down as Veda. So what we call as Veda was previously being just passed from professor to students. There was no written catalog of it. Why? Because people had good memory chips, inherent biological memory chips installed in their heads. They had more memory power, so they did not need gigabyte, terabyte memories like that. But because this went, the memory has gone down as the age is progressing, therefore people need more gigabyte or terabyte of storage. And because of that, Vyasadeva understood this, and therefore he wrote this down in the form of writings or text for the benefit of the people of Kali Yuga. And that is called as the written manuscript of Vedas. So the written body of Vedas actually. So that is what Vyasadeva wrote down 5,000 years before. And now this gives us an additional foolproofing. Why? Because any particular spiritual teacher comes and he says anything, he says I am a spiritual teacher. No. So first of all we have to ask, okay, which university you are qualified from, which board, which sampradaya, like that. Who was your guru? How did you learn it? Like that. So now, so we get an additional foolproofing. Why? Because now we can test any person, because we have the Vedic texts also available. We can read them, and we have the chain of disciplic succession. So we can read the past gurus or acharyas, like that, and we can check and map what this person is saying. In this way, there is a very powerful test and balance system which we can have ourselves, like that. One may ask a question that okay, a person may have learned good and proper knowledge, but because of the drives of selfishness, he may corrupt, amalgamate, adulterate this learning. How can we safeguard ourselves from that? And yes, we do see that actually people they cheat in the name of spirituality, like that. How do we test that? So to understand that, we can so that works actually, that then we need to see the whole genuine parampara per se. That there is no single one authority of spirituality in the world, like that. There are these genuine bona fide devotees all over, and the point to note is that in fact the parampara, what it does is that it maintains the purity of the shastras, it maintains the purity of the message, because any person deviates, then immediately is ostracized. This is how modern day patenting companies also work. Modern day research is recorded. Anybody says that I have invented this, immediately they'll check it. If it is matching with somebody else, they will immediately reject it or catch that person, for plagiarism, for misuse, or cheating, like that. So in a similar way, the parampara also works actually. One time, one gentleman came to Srila Prabhupada and he said, Swamiji, you have written a commentary on Bhagavad Gita. I'm very sorry to say, but your commentary very much looks like the commentary of Ramanujacharya. Hey? What did you do? What is your glory in that? I mean, what is your contribution in that? And Srila Prabhupada smiled, he became very happy. Prabhupada took it as a compliment. Prabhupada said, yeah, that is my glory. That's my glory. That what I have presented is very much like Ramanujacharya. That means that I am presenting the message as it is. There is no contamination in it. There is no adulteration. So that's my glory. And Prabhupada will say, that's my glory. That I am just presenting, as it is. There is no personal, manipulation in the whole message actually. So this is how parampara system works. So yes, this is the big tree, the banyan tree of Vedic knowledge, like that. So we can see it's amazing, mind-boggling banyan tree of Vedic knowledge. There are the Shrutis, which were Shrutis directly which is spoken by God. Smritis are elaborations. Shruti is said to be the mother. Smriti is like the elder sister who gives purports and explanation to what the mother is saying. Smriti is the explanation, further explanation of the concepts of Shruti by the sages. Therefore, there is this big, powerful banyan tree of the ocean of knowledge which is given to us. Now, one may say that, okay, so what if you're trying to say that Shabda is very important, but all what we have been accustomed to live with is Pratyaksha and Anuman. So is Pratyaksha and Anuman completely bogus, completely useless? I mean, that means all what we have been doing or what people are tuned to is all bogus. So that's a question which people may say. Another variation of the same question is that, okay, so you are saying that, okay, whatever is written in these Vedas and whatever the spiritual authorities are saying, okay, you can testify, he's saying same thing as what is written and all that, parampara and everything, but we just have to accept it blindly, right? That's what you're saying. So one may question like that. And now, so to answer this question, let's go back to the experiment of our innovative, young researchers who happen to be blind. So we go back to their experiment of the 6 blind men trying to figure out what is like an elephant. So the 6 blind men were using Pratyaksha and Anuman. Now you can understand. So now that blindness was the inherent limitation in Pratyaksha. And then they modeled, they did analysis over that inherent limitation or that pratyaksha, that was anuman, and therefore they came up with different results. So if you try to understand that the pratyaksha was not wrong. I mean, if you the belly of the elephant looks like a wall, it's not wrong. Yeah, I mean the trunk of the trunk of the elephant, I mean, it looks like a, the tail looks like a rope, is it not? No, the trunk looks like a tree branch or things like that. It's not wrong, it's fine. The only point to note is that it is incomplete. Pratyaksha and Anuman give us incomplete. Then you may say, ठीक है, फिर दुनिया में परेशानी क्यों है? परेशानी इसलिए है क्योंकि when the incomplete is considered to be complete, it makes things incorrect. That's where the mistake lies. The incomplete is not a problem. The problem is to take the incomplete to be complete, and that was the problem with Dr. Frog. His well was not problematic. State of the art laboratories, all they could do, they were giving results, but that was limited. It was an incomplete picture. But his arrogance was that he said that the incomplete is all that is there, nothing else can be there, and that makes things incorrect. That's what would limit mankind in his quest to evolve. So therefore, what is the solution? The solution is Shabda is not blind. Okay, yes, we said, okay, Shabda has to be accepted. But one may say that, okay, blindly? No, Shabda is not blind. So now let us go back to this experiment of the 6 blind men. The 6 blind men should have first attended a theory class by a person who has eyes, who has seen how does an elephant look like. And then if they would have heard an explanation and made notes, and he would have said, okay, elephant is a huge structure. Elephant has many parts in his anatomy, morphology. And one part is the belly is huge, like that. And the tusks are very sharp, The ears are like a wedge, like that. So then after that, if they would have gone to the experimental lab, then the person who is feeling a wall type structure will say, hey, this is a wall type structure. This is the belly of the elephant. I heard it. Yeah, I'm finding it. Belly, like that. And then they would have moved around, and they would have found, somebody would have found a branch, a tree trunk type of structure. You may say, hey, this is the leg of the elephant. Why? Because now why they are able to conclude everything fits in the right place. The pieces of the jigsaw puzzle are fitting in the right place. Why? Because they heard it from a person before doing the experiment. Similarly, Shabda should come first and should give us the direction matrix of life. And then one can use his Pratyaksha and Anuman to testify how this is correct. Then all the bits and pieces of the jigsaw puzzle will fall in place and we will have a beautiful painting of life. That's the point to note. That is the point to note. So therefore, the whole thing is like a scientific experiment. Life should not be undertaken on a blind note, on a mad note, on a hit and trial note. Let's be more intelligent towards undertaking of life. We have limited time. Our lifespan is limited. So why waste it just groping in the dark, hitting and trying out that maybe by chance we'll land up in the right place? No, we can make our moves intelligent and precise, confident and sure, and in that way we can drive to meaning and purpose. But we need to be scientific. Just like, suppose there is an electronics experiment which has to be done on a breadboard, and there are many chips actually, there are many connections, certain pin number of a particular chip A has to be connected to another pin number of a chip B, and so on and so forth. And there, suppose in that whole experiment there are now 80 connections which are supposed to be done. So if one is doing connections meticulously one after another, but he gets tired after 50 connections, the person says, okay, I am tired. Now open the electricity, I will see what is the graph which is coming on the oscilloscope bus. What will happen? At best nothing will happen, but some sparks, explosions may happen because you have done incomplete circuitry, is it not? And damaging may happen. So science means what? 80 connections means 80 connections, not 79. And if one does that, and then one opens on electricity, you'll get the perfect graph, 100% marks, in your experimental results, is it not? Similarly, what are the connections to be done in life? The Vedic manuscripts, the Vedic scriptures are talking about that these are the connections which you have to make in life. And if we adopt the scientific attitude as a broad-minded attitude, the scientific attitude is a diligent attitude. Yes, let me apply this and see. Here is this body of Shabda which is giving me directions. Let me apply this and see, make all the connections, and then if you push, then we put the switch on command. If you put it implementation, the switch of implementation in our lives, we can see a perfect result and how life becomes so meaningful and sublime. Why deprive us of this great opportunity which lays in front of us? Let us dive into it, test it out, and enjoy the meaning and the colors which life can bring about. Thank you. So if we have any questions, then we can take up a few questions now. Okay, here's a question. How do I proceed without being experimental and in risk of being incomplete in my analysis when I come across a new problem which I have never seen in my life and I need to solve it then and there? Okay. Yeah, how do I proceed? Yes. So this is good question. So this question is saying that when I come across a new problem, this problem is a unique problem, this problem is a new problem, and this problem has never been seen before, and now if I'm experimental, I may land up damaging myself, and there is a risk that I may be incomplete. So how can I solve it? Because it has to be solved. So many times these problems of life have to be solved. We cannot just forget it. So this is a very good question actually. And now, so the point is this: just like you will see that even in academics there are these these competitive examinations. Say joint entrance examination is a competitive IIT JEE exam, entrance exam. So this exam has many tricky questions. Sometimes the question is never seen before, and many times the question is like that. They come up with a new way of portraying the whole idea. And a person may interface and say, this is a completely new question. I never practiced this sort of a question, like that. Oh, it's a new this thing. So now, how to crack it? So the way to crack it is that one needs a very solid training into the known concepts. So therefore, you will see many times these coaches who are teaching the IIT JEE entrance. They say that okay, your fundamentals have to be very clear. I have seen many times in research also IIT professors or anywhere, and Melbourne professors I've seen, everybody stresses on the point. And you see the point in research, please make sure your fundamentals are clear. If your fundamentals are not very deep rooted and clear, you cannot crack it. So now what happens is that so when you are practicing, your fundamentals are getting clear, then you are getting a vision and a feel of the depth into a particular concept, into a particular formula. And then when you are sufficiently deep enough and you have practiced like that, then what is going to happen is that when a new situation comes, based on your so much practice, you are able to, and you understand so much depth of the application, then you can relate the new problem into a known problem, and then the solution. So that's what science is about. Cracking or solving a problem is about. That okay, there is a new situation which appears to be completely unknown, and actually one who is sufficiently practiced and a person who is knowledgeable, he actually maps the parameters of that situation into a known formula, applies it, gets the result, and executes it. Is it not? That's the point actually. The same thing we have to do. So the Shastras, the Vedic texts, are giving us a complete knowledge of ourselves, who we are, who the world is, who God is, how this world works, how karma works, how we can actually, how do we get entangled, how we get delusioned, how we get caught up, what is the pathway of liberation. Everything is taught, and we learn these formulas. Now just hearing these formulas is not enough. The Shastras don't not only give us the formula, the Shastras are giving us case studies. Now one should do these case studies, they are like solved problems. Now just like if you read Bhagavad Gita, it is a formulation of formulas, 700 formulas, for an impeccable life, invincible life, So Gita gives the formulas, but then we need case studies, solved examples. So Srimad Bhagavatam is giving case studies. Then you can see in the lives of different people, in different situations, how do the formula gets applied, like that. And then in that way we are soaked. And then we see in the lives of great devotees and acharyas how they applied the formula in their various situations. And then we are not standalone, we stay in the association of like-minded sincere seekers of truth and reality, genuine sincere devotees. We stay in association so we can see how others are applying their formulas, the right formulas in life based on the directions given by the Shabda. And in this way what is going to happen is that when we have so much of exposure and knowledge and practice and training, then given a new situation, we will be able to map it to a known situation, and then we will be able to solve it. It's possible. Yes. So the whole game is mapping, and mapping requires practice, like that. Mapping requires practice, like that. Therefore, we have to soak ourselves in Shabda, like that. And in fact, so therefore the default meditation would be to keep hearing about spiritual knowledge, the knowledge of life, and then see the world, analyze the world with the vision what we are acquiring from that knowledge. So therefore when some situation pops up, we'll be able to analyze it also. Possible. So we have to do the homework, like that. Any other questions? Okay, so I thank you all for your patient hearing, and we will end our session here. We will end our session here, and next session we are going to next Saturday we are going to hear about how to trace the goal of happiness, the quest for happiness, the various ways in which the quest for happiness is realized, what all hidden potentialities lie latent in us, and how the roadway map which the Vedic scriptures are talking about, how that can take us forward in a sure and powerful way towards the quest of happiness. All that in the next session. Thank you very much.